So today I'm going to break down the exact framework I use to help my clients attract and build a top 1% relationship. A relationship that turns a woman that you're with into your biggest cheerleader, who's loyal, who's affectionate, who's feminine, who you don't have to fucking beg for intimacy or affection or fucking respect. So over the past few years, I've worked with hundreds of founders, executives, engineers, finance bros, right, who kept losing the women they deeply loved, and all for the same fucking reason. They used a leadership style that was destructive to the relationship out of fear of looking like a toxic or controlling man. And they stopped giving their girlfriend fundamentally exactly what she craved the most, man, which was healthy masculine leadership. So the first important step to create a great relationship is to let go of your irrational conditioning that leadership is toxic, because it's not toxic, man. It is fucking necessary. Like, for example, up until I was 27-ish, right, I thought leading a relationship was toxic. Only bad men lead a relationship. Why did I think that way? Because I was raised by my fucking grandma without a masculine role model. So I was conditioned, right? Conditioned to believe that leading a woman is toxic, it's bad, it's manipulative. So what I didn't understand back then is that leadership itself is neutral. It's not good, it's not bad. And this is fucking important, man. Yeah. Like, you need to understand this nuance. Like, I view leadership as a car. Like, a car's job is simple: to get you to a destination. So, destination being a great relationship. So, whether you get to that destination depends entirely on how you fucking drive that car. So, it's not the car, aka the leadership, that is the problem, but how you drive the car, how you lead the relationship. A behavior, for example, of how you drive that car is either constructive or destructive. Yeah. And if leadership, for example, would be so toxic, bro, we wouldn't have CEOs, we wouldn't have football coaches, etc. Right? The issue is never leadership, it's the quality and execution of that leadership. So how do you develop this constructive leadership that actually leads to a 1% relationship? So I've spent over 12 years, like over a decade, developing a unique leadership style that I call it a Hercules method. And I use basically a 4-color system to teach my clients how to become a great leader, a Hercules. So fundamentally, there are 3 styles of leadership. 2 of them are just completely fucking toxic and destructive, and only one is constructive and attractive. From now on, I'll use my 4-color system as well as the car analogy to explain how that actually looks like in real life. So the first car, aka leadership style, is what I call the Kevin car. So Kevin car is fueled almost entirely by blue and purple. So blue and purple stand for empathy, right? How attuned you are, your ability to bond. So on the surface, Kevin looks like a great partner. Like, he ticks all the boxes, but the surface isn't as great as it seems, man. Because if you were to observe his actions, right, Kevin's actions, you'll notice something. And I'm going to list a couple of Kevin's actions right now. And I'm sure you'll really quickly see that it's actually not as great of a partner as he thinks he is. So Kevin fundamentally always listens, even when he's actually like too busy with work. He drops his own plans the moment like his girlfriend is upset and begs for his attention. He feels responsible for regulating every single fucking emotion of her. Over explains his intentions so he's not misunderstood. He shares every fear, every doubt, and every fucking insecurity to be open because he wants to be vulnerable. And he constantly checks if everything's okay. Like, are you okay, babe? How are you, babe? How's the day, babe? Right? And then the worst of it all, like, he apologizes for things that weren't even his fucking fault. Like, one of my clients, like, he literally apologized for setting a boundary. like like he said, like, hey babe, I'm sorry I have to do this, but could you please listen to me? Like, I would appreciate that. I mean, how can you expect a woman to respect you if you're so afraid of her opinion? I did a survey with my clients on my last call on Sunday and asked them, like, who of you has behaved like a Kevin and what has this led to? Like, all of them raised their hands and they all faced the same outcome: eventual divorce, eventual breakup. Because the softer they got, the more people pleasing they became, the more of a Kevin leadership style they developed, the more the woman pulled away. And it started with like questioning his decisions, being passive aggressive, rolling her eyes, right, when he says something, or criticizing every fucking decision or behavior of his, right? How he loaded the dishwasher, the restaurant he chose, yada, yada, yada. Like, someone who leads like a Kevin, right, he has 10 out of 10 empathy. I'm not going to deny that, but zero fucking boundaries. Like, he's a leader without any fucking backbone. He's a pushover, right? And behaves like sort of a feather in the wind. Now, why is this so unattractive? Like, let me ask you this. Like, would you trust a leader with your life who cannot fucking lead himself? Of course not, because that guy doesn't fucking know how to drive the car, right? To the destination, aka a top 1% relationship. He lacks self leadership, which creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates instability, and instability creates danger. And a woman cannot be soft or like feel safe around a man who creates a dangerous environment. A lot of guys think that aggression is the variable that creates an unsafe environment, but actually it's a lack of emotional containment, an anxious attachment, neediness that creates a psychological unsafe fucking environment. And up until you fucking fix those underlying drivers that keep you stuck in the Kevin leadership, every single relationship will fail, man. Because when you act like a Kevin, you create a leadership void that your woman has to step into. And the softer you become, the harder she becomes, because someone who leads, they have to have this emotional containment, which Kevin lacks. So now the big mistake that a lot of guys make is going from the Kevin extreme to the other extreme, which is the Andrew extreme. And the Andrew leadership style is basically having zero empathy and 100% boundaries. So a lot of men who got their hearts broken by a woman, they naturally don't want to happen that again, right? So they stop driving this blue purple car and start driving what I call a red orange Bugatti, which is the Andrew leadership style. Like, in red and orange stand for like assertive, blunt, and sort of playful leadership. I've coached a handful of guys who actually used to be this hyper masculine alpha bros, right? They typically work in finance or in sales, and they realize that while the Andrew vehicle is fun to drive, right? Because yeah, it gets you a lot of women, it still doesn't get you to the destination that you actually want, which is like a 1%, a top 1% relationship. Now, a lot of guys will ask, why the fuck is that? Well, think about it, man. Like, I just explained that for like a woman to be soft, needs to feel safe, right? Psychologically safe. Now, if you're someone who's controlling, who's outwardly aggressive and loud, and you raise your voice often during arguments, and you're very outspoken, you come across as a threat to your woman. Like, I used to be an Andrew in my relationships because, yeah, I did drugs, I got drunk every weekend, I worked in finance, obviously. My sleep was like completely wrecked. I lost my shit for the smallest things, right, during arguments. Now, what kind of environment did you think I created in that relationship, basically? Yes, I was assertive. Yes, I was confident. But like, during arguments, I yelled at my girlfriends. I told them they're stupid. I'm right. They're wrong. They're being too dramatic. They should stop being so fucking bitchy, right? They should stop being so sensitive. This behavior is literally the fastest way to destroy trust in your relationship, because like, trust is built on safety. If for example, if you always fear that the next argument is going to set off the next fucking Fukushima, you are not going to speak your truth. You're going to mute yourself. You're going to hold back. You're going to start tiptoeing around what you truly want to say because you're afraid. And when you're afraid, what do you think is going to happen to that emotional bond between you two? It's going to get cut, because there's literally no way you would ever trust someone that treats you this way. You're going to shut down. So what is the solution? You need to develop a car that runs on blue, purple, orange, and red, on a blend of all of them. And the ideal split, the optimal split, is around like 50% red, 25% orange, 15% blue, and 10% like purple. And don't worry, man, I'm going to walk you through the exact ways of how to develop them and integrate those colors in like just a second. Quick question, like, by now you've watched, I'm sure, like a ton of YouTube videos on how to build a great relationship and stop losing women that you love. You've read the books, right? You might have done even therapy, and it's still not fucking working. You know why? Because you never had the right system. Most of the men that I work with have already tried even working with other coaches. So if you're done being a fucking Kevin or an Andrew, you're done attracting boss babe Jessica dynamic kind of relationships where you're just being tolerated, where you constantly have arguments, where you cannot be your real self, where you have to beg for intimacy and affection. And if you like want to stop fucking living like that, click the link below, apply to work with me. And you only have one life, bro. Like, why would you waste it with the wrong women in the wrong relationship? Now, with that being said, how do you integrate those 4 colors? So let's start with the red, basically. So red stands for assertive, persuasive, grounded leadership, which is fancy for saying fucking no when you want to say no without being a dickhead, aka protecting your boundaries and developing emotional regulation and emotional containment. So there are basically 2 requirements to be able to integrate red and display red masculine frame. Requirement number 1 is the articulation of your boundaries. Requirement number two is emotional containment, because you need emotional containment as the foundation of articulation. Why? Because you can't articulate yourself properly when you throw a fucking tantrum or when you're insecure about yourself, because your nervous system is going to shut down, man. When you lack emotional containment, every time you get triggered, you're going to fight, flight, or freeze responses, right? Like fight means you like attack her for triggering you, like verbally, not physically. Flight means you just avoid the argument. You say, yeah, I can't talk about this right now. Or you say yes when you want to say no. And freezes, you just don't say any fucking thing. You're just a deer in the headlight. And obviously, neither of these three emotional states will allow you to articulate or verbalize your boundaries properly, because you won't be able to access your rational part of the brain that is responsible for, guess what, a mature adult conversation. So first of all, let me teach you how to learn how to contain your emotions. So there are several ways, right? But the best ways I've seen in my coaching, the ones that actually work best for my clients or with my clients and also for myself, is sort of a two-step approach. Number one, it starts with regulating your nervous system. So that's sort of a physiological approach. What my clients and I do every morning, as well as in our sessions, is something called box breathing. And it's basically like, I think also highly recommended by the Navy SEALs, for example, right? And it's super simple and you can implement it like literally just takes 10 minutes, right? So the way it works is like it's a 4-7-8 breathing pattern, right? So you inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds, and then release it for 8 seconds, and you do this for 10 minutes, right? And ideally you do this in the morning to start the day with like a regulated nervous system, because if the nervous system is regulated, not on edge, it is so much easier to stay calm and like take things not personally and not get triggered. So the second part of how I coach emotional containment is also I focus on psychology. So what does this mean? Like I help my clients rationalize emotions. So which means that, for example, when your partner triggers you, you just ask yourself like, okay, what the fuck is actually triggering me? Is it her behavior? Is it like an old childhood wound that I have not healed yet? Or what's going on? While you're like trying to like understand what's happening, you start becoming calmer, right? And then you can actually like start like asking yourself, is it worth engaging with that childhood wound right now? What's the consequence of getting triggered, right? And also like the most powerful question that my clients absolutely love is, and that resets their nervous system also psychologically, is like, how would Hercules respond right now? My ideal stoic best possible version of myself, how would they respond, right? Clearly Hercules would not give a fuck about the fucking trigger, so he would take a deep breath and then calmly verbalize his boundary. He wouldn't run away. He wouldn't like say yes when he wants to say no. He would just stand up for himself in a charming way. Which leads me to the next point, which is articulation. Articulation means doing it in a persuasive way so that she understands what you need, she understands your boundary, and actually respects that boundary. Because what good does it do when you keep telling her the boundary and she doesn't fucking listen to it? A lot of men make the mistake of articulating the boundaries in a destructive, non-persuasive way because they view women like men. So for example, Sandra often says like, hey Gene, you're working too much. Can you stop working so we can spend a bit more time together, right? Now, a lot of guys would say, Sandra, I'm working. I need to make money for us. Otherwise, we can't afford these fancy holidays. So like, give me some space. I mean, logically, makes perfect sense. Every guy understands this boundary, but most women won't. And Sandra would come fucking annoy me. And the thing with women is that women respond best when you invite them to see your inner world rather than just explaining the logical reason why something shouldn't be done, right? So when we set a boundary that is just purely logical, what we're failing to address is the emotional request behind her statement. Because she already knows the logic. It makes sense to her. She gets that. What's actually behind her request is, in this specific case that I've shared with you and with Sandra, is like, hey, stop working. Like, what her emotional request is, hey, I don't feel you anymore. We barely spend time together. I feel like you're pulling away. I miss you. I'm scared. That's what she's saying without really saying it. Whether it's good or bad that she's not expressing it clearly, that's a different conversation for maybe another video. But what matters most now is like, how do you respond actually in such a way that she gets it? The best response, I would say, is something like, hey, Sandra, I'd love to spend more time with you as well. I care about you. And what I'm also hearing is it sounds like you're missing me, you miss our quality time. Then you say, hey, what about this? The work that I'm doing right now is super urgent and I really need to finish this. And I'm sure you don't want me to feel guilty or stressed about not doing my fucking work, right? So I'll plan something for us next week or this weekend, right? Like I'll book us something. How about that? Bum. That is extremely sexy. And you might be wondering, okay, why the fuck is this sexy? Why does this work and not the logical part? Well, let me explain this. Right. First of all, I acknowledged her. I shared my feelings and I also made a plan. Right. I said, oh, it sounds like you're missing me. And I get it. That's acknowledgement, right? And I address also like, hey, I care about you. And that's why I'm going to plan something this weekend. Because that's what she's actually scared of. She is scared of the fact that you do not care anymore. And all she wants is to hear that you care, that you convey that you display this through actions. And when you say, hey, I feel you, I'm with you, I care, that makes her feel like seen and understood. That will calm her down. And when you then explain how you would feel if you didn't do the work, like guilt and stress and whatnot, empathize with you. Like she will get it because women bond through like emotional sharing and venting, right? So when you share your emotions, she thinks like, I get it, I understand it. Like I didn't see this, right? And I don't want him to feel this way. Like boom, like that's it. Once she understands it, it makes click in her brain. She's like, yeah, okay, I'll let you be. But here's the thing, bro. You are now assertive and stoic, which is great, but you still need three more colors to be able to have a balanced masculine frame to make her feel safe and attracted to you. And obviously, I'm going to teach you now how to do that. And the next three colors that we're going to work on are purple, blue, and then orange. So blue and purple represent basically like empathy and attunement, right? What the fuck does this even mean? Empathy and attunement basically stand for like your ability to observe her emotions and observe her and read her emotions and then articulate her emotions back to her so that she feels seen. Because remember, women bond through sharing emotions. Now, how do you do that? It's actually super simple and super attractive. There's a specific technique that I learned in sales and finance, that I learned as a managing director at a startup in my leadership training as well, which is called cold read. And this technique allows someone to like feel extremely safe with you through like mirroring back their emotional state. And it's so fucking sexy and powerful, bro. So you might wonder, okay, why do a lot of guys struggle with this? Because you're not like paying attention, you're not present. So when my girlfriend Sandra, for example, when she comes home and she complains about her day or something like that, like what I do is, in order to turn on the radar that picks up on her emotions, I put all my technical devices away. I close my MacBook, I put my phone down, right? And then I just observe the words that she's saying, as well as observing her body language to find out, okay, what is she actually feeling? Does she cross her arms? Are her shoulders slouching forward? What are the micro signals? Like, well, how is her facial expression? Is she frowning? Is she talking more like, oh, Jean, today was a really bad day? Or is she saying, oh, today, Jean, was like kind of a bad day? Her intonation, the words that she's using, the language, it's all a signal, right? It's an articulation of her internal state. So I'm picking up on those words, but I also pick up on her body language. And if her breathing, for example, is heavy, quick, if I observe her chest moving like differently than usually, that is a sign for me, okay, she's not in the best mood. She most likely just needs someone she can dump her emotions on. And she's most likely, like, the best way to describe us, like upset, frustrated, angry, I don't know, disappointed, yada, 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 right? I don't know. I'm not a fucking mind reader. But what I try to do is make the best educated guess. And then I verbalize those best educated guesses back to her, which creates emotional safety because psychologically safe to be vulnerable here. Because again, women bond through venting emotions and sharing their internal state. That allows another person actually to share their vulnerable side. And that is fucking sexy, but that's only the first step. The second step is like when you mirror back that vulnerable side to them, it makes them feel like, wow, this guy actually gets me. He's paying attention. So how do I do that? I just say, oh, sounds like, and then I translate what I've observed and articulate that through like the template that I call cold read. Here's an example. Sounds like you've had a very stressful day and you seem a bit upset. So it's like, it sounds like plus the description of her emotional state. Like 99% of the time, this shit works, bro. It's gold. Why? Because it might sound illogical. Like, why does it help that someone just mirrors back their emotions? But like, you need to understand that a person in a moment isn't logical. They're like in a stressed state. They're illogical. We need to calm them down, and we calm them down by like mirroring back their emotions and making them like feel seen and listen to. So I'm going to put up a screenshot somewhere here on the screen where I use this specific technique with Sandra. So somewhere here on the screen, I will put up like a screenshot of Sandra and me, where I believe I said like, sounds like you had a bad day, or like a draining day, and then that triggers her to open up. So what we're doing right now with red, purple, and blue is creating like an extremely safe environment for her, right? Like for her to be soft and flourish, basically, right? However, if we only create like a safe environment, if we only stick to blue, red, and purple, we're creating a very boring environment, because safe is boring, to be fair. And if there's one thing women hate, or human beings in general, to be fair, like no one really wants to be bored, right? And because this is where most good partners, most Kevins fucking fail, and the relationship dies by like 1,000 boring cuts, so to say, right? So we need to go beyond just creating safety. And how do we create that? By bringing in fun, injecting more fun into the relationship. I'm obviously going to give you specific techniques now that will inject more fun and sprinkle in a bit more adventure into the relationship, so that she can also not only feel safe but also alive. So think of your relationship like a roller coaster, right? If you only create a safe environment, like the roller coaster is like basically flat, right? There are no turns, there are no ups and downs, right? That is going to be fucking boring. You're not going to hop on that ride because it's just too predictable. Now, if that roller coaster ride, however, had the craziest turns, right, the craziest ups and downs, right, free falls and whatnot, but it had safety issues, bro. Like for example, you had a 20% chance that like you wouldn't make it out alive, bro. Like you wouldn't step on that fucking roller coaster, because the risk return ratio wouldn't be worth it. You only hop on a roller coaster that is 100% fun and 100% safe. And that's what we're going to recreate now with the techniques that I'm going to share with you, so that you can create that kind of dynamic in your relationship. And we do that by integrating Orange leadership style. And there are various techniques and frameworks that we can use, but I'm going to share with you my two favorite ones: tribalism and assumed attraction. And why are these so powerful? Because both of them trigger some of the most primal and deepest female fantasies. So let's start with tribalism. Tribalism is fundamentally the ability to create an us versus them dynamic. And you want to create the same dynamic in your relationship. So a couple of examples of us versus them dynamics in relationship is basically like creating a relationship that everyone else is jealous of. Like, we want to create a 1% relationship. That will appeal to status. That will appeal to social hierarchy. When you start appealing to that kind of desire and drive, that creates an amazing bond between you two, because it creates a shared vision. It creates a shared goal, and nothing is more powerful than creating a shared struggle, a shared goal. Like, I'm not sure, maybe you haven't noticed this yet, but like every politician does this, every football team does this. They create this us versus them dynamic, or like this movement that basically like pulls you in, and then you feel like you belong to that movement. You're part of that movement, and you protect it with your life. You might wonder, okay, how do you actually put this into practice? There are a couple of techniques, but some of the easiest ways is, for example, you develop nicknames for each other. You develop a shared language. For example, with Sandra, we have the nicknames Hercules and Bambi. That might sound super basic, but it's super powerful. Shared language, again, creates a super powerful bond. Like, because shared language represents culture, culture bonds. Like, babe, honey isn't a fucking nickname, man. It's too generic and it means nothing to either of you. I call Sandra Bambi because she has those Bambi eyes, those deer eyes, those cute eyes, right? She walks very feminine. She flows when she walks, right? She has like brunette hair as well. So the nickname fits her essence. Bambi the cute deer. And then on top of that, our shared language are like Pudgy penguins, like GIFs or GIFs, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, and memes that we send each other. On top of that, we share also the same views on the government overreach, health, and all this BS, right? So that creates this shared identity that is so powerful, and a shared identity creates an unbreakable bond. It turns you into a team against the world, right? We're not making the world like our enemy, but anything that threatens the relationship becomes the enemy. We need to protect this. And nothing brings people closer together than fighting a common enemy, than protecting the homelands, your own land. People literally start fighting over physical products on social media's comment section, like Apple is better than Samsung. Who gives a fuck, bro? Actually, it's so irrational. But by the way, man, if you recognize that you're fucking sick and tired of acting like a Kevin, and you want to become a Hercules, you want to attract and build like a top 1% relationship with a woman that genuinely desires you, that is your biggest cheerleader, why don't you like join my program. I'll personally teach you how to become an integrated Hercules, man. Like, trust me, man, this isn't just like some glorified online course or like a dead community where I never show up. I'm in the trenches with you every single fucking day. I hold you accountable every single day. I push you, I reassure you, man. I'm gonna make sure that this is going to be the best decision you'll ever have made. Stop being shy, stop limiting yourself, man. Click the link below and apply for a call with me. Now back to the framework. Another framework I love to use and I teach my clients is fundamentally assumed attraction. Assumed attraction fundamentally means you develop a frame. The frame that you are the guy. You need to understand that everything in life is a frame. Like, a frame means like a mental model, yeah? Every interaction between two people is two frames communicating with each other. And the frame that I have in my relationship is I'm the guy. You're with me, so I'm the guy for you. Why would you be with me otherwise? And I'm the best possible option for you. Why? Because I do all the work. A lot of people call this arrogant. I'm calling this fucking confident. That's it. So, for example, when Sandra texts me, like, how did you sleep? Or what did you do today? That's a request for connection, isn't it? Right? She's thinking of me. Otherwise, she wouldn't fucking text me, which means she's attracted. That's just my assumption. It's a fair assumption, and I'm just going to live with that assumption. Now, the next step is to verbalize that assumption. For example, once Sandra said, like, oh, can I call you? I want to show you like a new gym that we can go to when we move here. So instead of responding logically and telling, oh yeah, sure, show me. So instead of responding logically to this request and say, sure, you can show me, I said something a bit more playful. So like, oh, that's a cute excuse to like get me on the phone because you miss me. That's assumed attraction. So when I was a nice guy, fucking Kevin, I felt uncomfortable doing this because I thought it was arrogant. Man, I've dated hundreds and hundreds of women, yeah? And they always complained about the same fucking thing when they met me on date number one. You look like a fuckboy, you talk like a fuckboy, you act like a fuckboy, you behave like a fuckboy. High quality women, investment bankers, management consultants, you know? Doctors, lawyers. Guess what I said? Here you are on a date with me. What does this say about what you actually like? Oh, Sandra sometimes says like, oh, you're so full of yourself, and yet you love me so much. That's how I respond, bro. Why wouldn't I? I like myself. I've done the inner work. I love myself. And I would do everything for Sandra. I don't need to put her down to view myself as the guy. I just own who I am. Another way of assuming attraction is basically using like everyday conversations, right? So for example, instead of saying like, oh, good morning, how did you sleep, babe? Even though you should stop fucking using babe, by the way, and replace it with a proper nickname. So instead of saying good morning, how did you sleep, Bambi? I sometimes say good morning, how did my favorite stalker sleep this morning? Favorite means that there are so many other women that are stalking me. Of course, it's absurd, but like, who cares? That's not the point of the conversation. And stalker means that she can't get enough of me, right? And the combination of both makes it super charismatic and funny. You need to understand that charisma is derived from absurd conversations. And it's only absurd conversations that create playful tension, and only playful tension creates attraction. And only attraction combined with safety will make sure that you have a top 1% relationship that lasts forever. So when she's so attracted to you in a relationship, you will run into the next problem, which is that she will want to have more and more intimacy with you. Which means that you want to make sure that you know her deepest and darkest primal fantasies to make sure that you can sort of give her what she needs. And that's exactly what I'll teach you in this next video, which you can watch here.